The day is here, and we will be going over some of the last-minute polls that came in over the weekend, tried to make a determination as to which direction and how far this Congress goes. So we'll go over the Real Clear Politics, we'll see what's happening there, the congressional generic ballot, the Senate, the gubernatorial races, and everything else. So strap yourselves in for that, because it'll be a little bit dense, but we'll go over all of that and figure out what's going on with that. In other news, Chuck Norris has officially endorsed a candidate. He's jumped into politics to come back and tell us that he will put his support behind Blake Masters. And, well, if you want to argue with a person who seasons his steak with pepper spray, go right ahead. But we'll go over some of that and what's happening there. Marjorie Taylor Greene makes left-wing heads explode by saying that under Republicans, not another penny will go to the Ukraine. I don't necessarily believe that. I'll believe that when I see that, but she's also a plant, so we'll go over some of that and what's happening with there. And Elon Musk and the Twitter saga continues as Kathy Griffin manages to get herself suspended from Twitter for pretending to be Elon Musk. It's going to be all this and more. Welcome to the end of midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. What do you say that we all just, we get up from our desks in the Joja Mart and go live a simpler life of farming and selling the stuff that everybody else around in the village is farming for gold and raising animals that somehow nobody else had access to in the midst of history in this particular area. What do you say we do that? What do you think? Give up the rat race, the grind, and everything else, and go live in Stardew Valley all together? Man, Stardew Valley would be a weird place if a lot of the people in this chat all went in there and lived together. It'd be a pretty cool place, but it'd be weird too. Anyway, with that, let's get into the news. Let's get started. We've got a lot to go over here today, and really, honestly, the biggest chunk off this, and I cut down the finance section to one article today because we'll have poll analysis, we'll have election analysis. Everybody who could behave badly in this particular election is behaving badly. And yes, that includes Elon Musk over at Twitter and the people who are challenging him to make sure that they can get suspended too. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the rest of this here over on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go over and check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Overruled with KTZed, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks Podcast, and PJ Patriot. Go check out all of that great programming. It's going to be a great time as we find a group of people who are out there to bring you news and culture from the common man for the common man, memes, religiosity, liberty, and news all together in one place. So we'll talk about that, and do make sure you guys go check out all that great programming. Tell them J. Edgar sent you. And before we get started one more time, I do want to remind you that we are doing a push right now to help Athena Barbie doll with her PPROM pregnancy complication. That is right, we do have the Give, Send, Go up there because, as was written here by KTZed, Michelle, Athena Barbie doll, was blessed with wonderful news 20 weeks ago when she found out she was pregnant after a devastating miscarriage in 2020. Unfortunately, earlier this week, her water broke. Right now, her little girl has already proven to be a fighter. She's alive and moving, but they're admitting Michelle to the hospital to wait it out. It could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 15 weeks. Between 20 and 24 weeks, her baby will be considered by doctors to be viable. This fundraiser is to pay the bills so mom can concentrate on creating life as an in-home caregiver for seniors. Michelle does not get paid unless she's at work. Preterm premature rupture of the membranes is a pregnancy complication on this condition. The sac, amniotic membrane, surrounding the baby breaks before 37 weeks of pregnancy. Once the sac breaks, Michelle has an increased risk for infection. So, we do have some updates here. We've got, from November 2nd, the ultrasound, which I don't know if I can actually blow that up right now or not, just based on the fact that it may show injury to child, but that's one thing to go with that. But if you'd like to do this, if you'd like to get into this, you get the fundraiser up in the live chat for you. Go and check that out. That is somebody who is a fan and a person who is on the same train of trying to promote liberty and news and culture from the common man for the common man. So hop into there and see what it is that you guys think about that. Apparently it won't post over to the Twitch. Oh, there it went. Never mind, it will post over to the Twitch side. And let's get into it. Let's get started. Starting with the Dow. The Dow turned up on Friday after holding itself steady throughout the day. It rose and then for most of the day stayed right in line with its previous close of 32,001 US dollars and 25 US, or sorry, that's not US dollars, so I'm thinking Bitcoin. 32,001.25 points, and at the very end shot itself back up another 400 points to close itself out at 32,403.22 points. That is up 401 or 1.26%. Honk honk as we finish out the rest of this. So that's one of the things that we see going on with that. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which is at 20,761 US dollars even. That is down on the day 147 US dollars and 90 US cents, or a little less than 3/4 of a percentage point on the day, bringing this out to the 5-day to see what happened over the weekend. And it looked like it actually had a fairly good weekend on the Bitcoin. It stayed above 21,000 throughout the course of the weekend, and then only dropping off as we came in today to bring itself back down below the 20,000 line. So yeah, for almost to 21,500 on Friday into Saturday. So those of you who are into the Bitcoin got a little bit of flash in the pan, which is kind of cool for you. I hope that you were able to do well with that. But As for now, it is dropping back down, and we'll continue to see what happens with this as we go through things. The gas prices. Shock of all shocks in Progressive. Madison in swing state Wisconsin. The Madison gas prices. We are still seeing some 4s around here, but the big and the most popular ones, the quick trips on both the east and the west sides, have dropped. The quick trip on the far west side is down to $3.74. The quick trip on the far east side is down to $3.90. Both of those were at 4 on Friday when we looked at them. The Isthmus has dropped down to $3.80. The quick trip entering the Isthmus is also to $3.90. The BP on the north side is at $3.90. The Exxon on the far west side is still at 4. So a little bit of a mixed bag depending on where you go in the Madison area. Your gas prices may be different depending on where you are. The individual market factors in play, your gas taxes, and local political decisions as well. So this is just a benchmark guide as to where one specific market has been going throughout the Biden admin. So we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures rise. Apple iPhone 14 Pro production hit. Big Meta job cuts seen. And the Dow futures have actually turned positive overnight, because when I looked at this last night, they were down as of 9 p.m. Central Time last night. And they've brought themselves back up, and that's what we see for that. From Ed Carson, Dow futures were modestly higher early Monday, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ. Berkshire Hathaway earnings, Apple iPhone 14 Pro production woes, and reports of Meta Platforms layoffs headlined weekend news. Even with solid close on Friday's whipsaw session, the stock market rally suffered significant damage last week, with the major indices tumbling on hawkish comments from Fed Chief Jerome Powell. The NASDAQ had its worst week since January as megacaps plunged and cloud software crashed. Apple, Amazon, and Alphabet all lost more than 10% for the week. With Facebook parent Facebook parent Meta, I've lost my place in the article. This is the weirdest thing with IBD. If you don't archive it, when you move past the video, it kicks the video over here, and then it realigns all your text as if the video was never there. So, most of the time I can catch it, but sometimes just looking at that, it flips on me and I can't find it again. Tesla and Microsoft are not far behind. Google stock, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft all hit bear market lows. Apple and Tesla did not, but they're close. Meanwhile, Twilio and Atlassian crashed Friday on disappointing results and guidance, losing more than 40% for the week. A slew of other software names tumbled with or without earnings, while Twilio, weren't they the ones that came out and said that they were going to be excessively woke? A market rally trying to fight with the Fed with major tech sector plummeting. That's a tall order, so while there are some stocks and sectors showing strength, investors should be extremely cautious in the current environment. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.5% versus fair value despite Apple stock acting as a drag. The S&P climbed 0.4 and the NASDAQ advanced 0.35. Futures reversed higher from modest to solid declines on Sunday evening, but have faded from morning highs. China's exports unexpectedly fell in October, while the country's pox cases hit a 6-month high. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose strongly overnight. Extending recent gains, investors are still hoping China's government will ease its zero-COVID policy, as social media chatter has speculated. Crude oil prices edged lower while natural gas futures spiked 11%, copper fell 2%. The 10-year yield dipped 3 basis points to 4.13%. 4.13% on a 10-year Treasury yield, without a GDP to back it up, is, again, and as I've said this, as soon as I figured out what the 10-year Treasury yield was, because I'm going to be completely honest, when they started talking about it, when it was at 1.2, 1.5, 1.7, and they started to say, hey, getting over 2 might be dangerous for the economy, I didn't know what it was. So yes, the promise is now that I know what it is, please buy our bonds. You'll get 4% Look at that. The dollar fell slightly after tumbling on Friday. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Gaines is here. Gaines. Was it Gaines or was it Jake Paul's tiny left nut, actually, before I give credit to where credit is not due. No, I'm sorry, that was Goats and Scarves, or Jake Paul's tiny left nut. Put out the a meme over in the Discord, which if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. And I actually had to go back and clean up the coffee that I was drinking when I saw it, because it was all over the screen after I saw that meme. That was funny. I like that. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that is your last trading, or the intro to your last trading day before we get in and go out to vote in the midterms. That's what we see coming from that, and there is a lot there. And what happens tomorrow is going to change what the markets do a lot as well. I don't know which direction it's going to change them in, but it's going to change where the markets go. Before we get into our poll analysis for the morning, we do have to do our regular F in the chat when a celebrity passes away, because we do this. And this is, by the way, somebody who's incredibly young. I didn't completely realize this, but this is a person who is my sister's age. I'm not going to speculate as to what took him, partially because we're on YouTube and I don't think I can get away with it, but Aaron Carter, singer, dead at 34. The less famous Carter brother, in fact, from Chloe Mellis and Emma Tucker. Aaron Carter, former child pop star and younger brother of Backstreet Boys' Nick Carter, has died. A source close to the family told CNN he was 34. A spokesperson for the the LA County Sheriff's Office, LA Times, told CNN they responded to a call for help at Carter's Lancaster, California home on Saturday, around 1100 hours local time, where a deceased person was found at the scene. He was found dead in his bathtub, a source said. Authorities gave no information about a possible cause of death. Well, we will wait to see what comes out with that. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to attribute it falsely to something that's not actually it. Especially when we have a guy who's probably coked up to his eyeballs and heroin and hookers and everything else too. Carter, who first found fame as a boy with pop songs like I Want Candy and Crush on You, is survived by his 11-month-old son, Prince. The singer's debut studio album, Aaron Carter, was released in '97, and he performed as the opening act for Backstreet Boys earlier that year. His fifth and final studio album, Love, was released in 2018. There are a lot of times that I joke about some of these pop stars, these child actors and everything, and, well, actors in general, and I said I didn't even know X person was still alive. But, I mean, at 34, I at least had the assumption that this person was still alive and was going to have a lot of years ahead of him, going back and forth to the best doctors in Hollywood and Los Angeles. Carter was also known for his roles on television shows such as Lizzie McGuire on Disney Channel and Seventh Heaven, which debuted on the WB television network. He also appeared on his family's reality series on E! House of Carters. Wow, I didn't even know that existed. The singer received an outpouring of love and support from fans and other celebrities in 2017 after he came out as bi. I would make the usual gesture that I make about this, but given the fact that it's him coming out as bi, it would seem oddly inappropriate. There's something I'd like to say that I feel is important for myself and my identity that has been weighing on my chest for nearly half of my life, Carter wrote on Twitter. This doesn't bring me shame, just a weight and a burden that I've held for a long time that I would like to lift it off of me. He then explained that around the age of 13, he started to find boys and girls attractive. There were years that went by and I thought about that, but it wasn't until I was 17. After a few relationships with girls, I had an experience with a male that I had an attraction to, who I also worked with and grew up with. The singer opened up in 2019 in an episode of The Doctors about his battle with multiple mental health issues. CNN, I probably wouldn't have put that right after the fact that he came out as bi. I'm just saying that probably cuts against your agenda. Including multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, acute anxiety, and manic depression. So, child star. This is my reality, Carter said as he held up a plastic bag of multiple prescription bottles in one clip featured on the show's Facebook page. In 2017, Carter was arrested in Georgia under suspicion of driving under the influence and marijuana possession as he and then-girlfriend Madison Parker were traveling through Habersham County. The singer later said in an interview he doesn't drink and denied that he has a drug problem, CNN previously reported. So, again, the less famous of the Carter brothers, but somebody who did have some influence on people growing up. I remember, I didn't necessarily listen to the Aaron Carter music, but my sister was a big-time Backstreet Boys fan, so, and she had all the Tiger Beats and everything else, so I was tangentially aware of who this person was. Had they not mentioned any of the songs, I probably couldn't have told you that. I had no idea he was in Seventh Heaven, because I've actually only seen like an episode or two of Seventh Heaven, and I was just old enough to where I had outgrown the tween sitcom kind of thing when Lizzie McGuire was out. Like, if I'd have been maybe a year younger, that probably would have still been in my demographic. So, there's a loss to that. His brother, the more famous Carter, did react to this. Also from CNN, Aaron Carter's older brother Nick is heartbroken after the singer's death at the age of 34. He wrote in a post on Instagram Sunday saying that despite their complicated relationship, his love for Carter has never faded. I've always held on to the hope that he would somehow, someday, want to walk a healthy path and eventually find the help that he so desperately needed. Nick, a member of the Backstreet Boys, wrote in caption alongside photos of the brothers throughout the years. Sometimes we want to blame someone or something for a loss, but the truth is that addiction and mental illness is the real villain here. I will miss my brother more than anyone will ever know, he added. I love you, Chiz. Now you get a chance to finally have some peace that you can never find here on Earth. God, please take care of my baby brother. So, the Carters and Aaron passing away. I'm a little bit curious to see what the cause of death was. I have suspicions. I don't know if they're true or not, but I mean, it does follow a rash of mysterious passings of people my age and younger. But that's what we have for that. All right. Let's get back into the news and the politics of the day, and we are going to look at the latest polls from Real Clear Politics and look at some very close races as we go. Now, Georgia, Landmark Communications, put out 2 polls right away, and oddly enough, Kemp is running away with it. I mean, I don't think Abrams has a chance in hell, but with the Walker and Warnock race, it is very, very close. And some other polling too when we look at New Hampshire, because the New Hampshire Senate, in both cases, it's statewide races both, but Sununu is taking it, walking away with a plus 12 from UNH. And while they're polling the same people, Hassan is still plus 2 as far as the Senate goes. I have no idea what just beeped at me. Something auto-played. I have no idea what it was, but I heard it. Maybe DJ Cutman put it out through his live stream here. I don't know. All right, let's look at Walker versus Warnock. With the latest few polls, Walker versus Warnock, which have all come out over the weekend, we have a Walker plus 0.5. Any sort of undersampling from any direction could make this race go either way. I do have an idea that it was a Democrat oversample, but I don't know. But this is something I have to say with this. And this is a stark contrast between the Kemp-Abrams race and this race. I don't think they should put Herschel Walker up. I'm going to come right up and say that. I think that literally any other remotely MAGA-leaning Republican would have taken this race walking away. And Warnock, I don't want to see you do anything else in the government, but I'm going to come out and say this for your benefit. You need to take what's coming out here as the aggregate as an explanation that if you do manage to eke this one back out, you need to clean your act up. Hard. Herschel Walker is poorly spoken. He is scandal-ridden. And in the aggregate, right now, he is beating you by 0.5%. Any other Democrat in the world should be able to take this one against Herschel Walker walking away. And I say this as not a fan of Democrats, but when Herschel Walker is the candidate, anybody else in the world, I should be able to go down, carpetbag down to Georgia, and take this walking away against Herschel Walker. The fact that this is close speaks to a historically bad candidate in Raphael Warnock. I mock some of the people, and I did this in not my Discord server, but another Discord server. I mocked some people who were telling me and saying that, we were talking about the polls and everything, and I mocked some of the people in the comments on one of the big blue accounts, and I don't even know which one it was anymore, came out and said, "Oh, well, we need to get out here and vote, and it's showing that Warnock is ahead by +6, so get out there and vote, everybody." And it was a single outlier poll. I think it was this one from WXIA TV Survey USA was the one they were referencing, actually. And somebody came out and says, "Well, in a just world, it would be 90% to 10% for Warnock." And I mocked that person. But in reality, with Herschel Walker as a candidate, that's actually not a bad comparison at all. How bad do you have to be losing in the polls? And of course, again, everything is going to come down to what happens to the state of Georgia, what Atlanta does for the rest of the state of Georgia. But how badly do you have to be losing? How bad of a candidate do you have to be losing to Herschel Walker right now? Seriously. But that is what we have coming for that. Kemp versus Abrams. Let's look at that one. I think she can pull it off, guys. 8% gap. I think she can pull it off. And if she doesn't go and pull this off, well, I guess that means that the election was stolen by Brian Kemp. Stolen! Malice! Evil! We can deny that election. We can't deny anything from 2020, but evil! Let's look at, I want to look at Bolduc versus Hassan and then the gubernatorial race for New Hampshire, because that blows my mind. Again, on the same ticket with that much of a spread between the two. On the RCP average, Hassan is +1 for the New Hampshire Senate, Bolduc versus Hassan, but this one's in play. We have, on a margin of error, sometimes up to 3.7%, and only one poll has ever showed either candidate break the margin of error. So we'll see. For a brief moment, Bolduc actually came up in the aggregate and was leading, but fell behind, but not by much. This is a competitive race. And this one might be the difference between 55 Senate and a 53 Senate. Or Greg Sununu could come back and take it over and drag everyone over the finish line. Or Chris Sununu, not Greg Sununu. In the aggregate, I don't think that Mr. Sherman has a chance. Plus 16, plus 12, plus 21, plus 18, with an average of 16.7 on the aggregate. Not a single poll showing Sherman up, and it's not even close. That would be, and again, that would be the big thing, is if Chris Sununu actually did come out and drag Bolduc up over the finish line. We'll see. We'll continue to watch this one. JD Vance and DeWine, that one's in the bag at this point. They really wanted Tim Ryan to win this one. Let's look at the aggregates for these one. 7 plus 0.5 for Vance, and he's just taken that running away. Like, it was close earlier in the week, and just over the last few, I think Vance has got this one. Of course, again, it's another one of those things where anything could happen at the very end. But even if he doesn't, Mike DeWine's going to carry him over the finish line. Plus 22 on the aggregate. Never been close. Tim Ryan, I hope you write some books. Budd versus Beasley. Maine governor, New Hampshire governor. Grassley versus Franken. I don't think that one's going to be having any problem. Let's look at the Biden job approval and the generic ballot. And then there were a couple other races that I do want to look at closely. Biden job approval is on the aggregate at 12.5 spread, with a 42.4 approve rather, and a 54.9 disapprove. Not his historic high level, but I mean, he's there. And again, it's starting to walk away with a more of a disapprove than an approve, so his approval seems to be tanking. And that is going to drive the generic ballot. It really is. 2022 congressional vote with an ABC and an NBC. The congressional on the aggregate is plus 2.5, the NBC showing plus 1, the ABC showing Republican plus 2. And again, another spread that seems to be screaming upwards as they go. Fairly competitive through October. But as we go in all the way through 2022, I mean, the Republican generic ballot has been steadily up for probably one of the first times in my adult life, with just a little bit of statistical noise out here towards the end of September. All right. Obviously, we're going to go look at my state because it's me and I'm the host. So, top Senate races. Wisconsin. Johnson has got 2.8 on the aggregate, 49.2 to 46.4. After a stunning reversal in the polls, this one is still within the margin of error. This one is very competitive still. So do keep that one in mind. Let's not come out here and run a bunch of celebrations off that one. The Tim Michaels race on the aggregate has Michaels up 0.4. A stunning reversal again in approval ratings as they go. And this one, again, this one's very competitive. This one has been jumping all around as they go. Let's look at Pennsylvania. Governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, has probably got that walking away. And there's a good chance, again, with this one. I don't feel confident about the Oz race. Number one, I don't care for Dr. Oz. That's first and foremost. I do not care for Dr. Oz. I think he's a charlatan. I think he's a moron. I don't think he has any place in the government. And with that, with numbers like this, just like I said with New Hampshire, just like I said with Georgia, Josh Shapiro might actually take this one walking away and pull Fetterman up over the finish line. Because this one's another one that's not even been close. But again, when we go and look at the Senate race, Mehmet Oz, no, not Georgia. I don't want Georgia. Go away. We looked at Georgia already. Oz versus Fetterman, where Oz has actually come up in the aggregate by plus 0.1. I do think that there are a lot of people who don't want to cast their ballot for somebody who just had a stroke. But there again, with that 10-point gap, there is a real possibility that Josh Shapiro pulls Fetterman over the line in a squeaker. It's not looking good. But that down ballot effect may happen with that. So that's what we see for that. Some poll analysis before we go. And I guess we'll be talking about any scandal that comes right before we go. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. We're going to have a bad night. Dem strategist predicts disastrous midterms. From Virginia Kruta. Democrat strategist Hillary Rosen predicted disastrous results for her party, and she said that they only had themselves to blame after repeatedly failing to listen to voters in the weeks and months leading up to Tuesday's midterm elections. One thing on the Pennsylvania race before I go into this, when they talk about they only have themselves to blame, and I just kind of thought about that as I read that line, is what would happen if we went the opposite direction? If people looked at the Fetterman thing and realized that there was so much desperation to hang on to power that they threw a person with a stroke up and didn't try to replace him, and they punished Shapiro at the ballot box for it, and everybody with a D after the name for doing so, that's a possibility too, although I had a 10-point lead. Not a big possibility. Rosen joined a panel discussion moderated by Dana Bash on CNN's State of the Union, and she predicted that Democrats were likely to have a bad night on Tuesday, largely because they had not tailored their midterm message to the issues that voters had said were most important, namely inflation and the economy. Well, yeah, I mean, they told you to ignore those things. That's going to be their big downfall, is they told you to ignore those things. Now, everybody knows that it is Dem policy at this point that caused these things. Everybody has figured that out at this point. But their messaging wasn't, we're sorry, we're bad, we will do what we can to fix this. We can stop spending, we can do this, we can make this happen. It was, well, inflation doesn't exist. Oh, it's just transitory. Oh, it's because of the Russians. We have no control over it. Telling your voters you have no control is a bad thing. Oh, well, inflation is actually a good thing. Oh, well, you might as well just vote for us because Republicans don't have a plan to combat it anyway. Let's listen, though.
Hillary, you have a different take, maybe, than Bakari on Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark is right.
As a Democrat.
I'm a loyal Democrat, but I am not happy. I just think that we did not listen to voters in this election, and I think we're going to have a bad night. And, this conversation's not going to have much impact on Tuesday, but I hope it has an impact going forward. Because when voters tell you over and over and over again that they care mostly about the economy, listen to them. Stop talking about democracy being at stake. Democracy is at stake because people are fighting so much about what elections mean. I mean, voters have told us what they wanted to hear, and I don't think Democrats have really delivered this cycle.
I think that's actually very true about the national messaging that's going on. But you actually have some good candidates who are following your advice. You have people like Mark Kelly, who is running a great race. You have people like Raphael Warnock, who's running a great race. And Josh Shapiro,
I would say in those places,
Fetterman and Tim Ryan.
What we have are, the unfortunate combination of strong gubernatorial candidates, like Mark Kelly is I was just in Arizona and spent some time there, talked to a bunch of voters. Mark Kelly's popular, but Kari Lake is more popular. And the combination of Kari Lake's popularity and Joe Biden's unpopularity is going to hurt Mark Kelly. And so I think we're in trouble because of the top of the ticket.
Are you going to interrupt her and disagree with her?
I don't want to break up dem on dem violence, but I feel like Blake Masters is going to win Arizona because the reality is that the border is a serious issue down there. And to Hillary's point, the Democrats have not talked about how are we going to do to fix inflation at a 40-year high. What are we going to do to control the border? What are we going to do to handle crime?
It's not because of facts, Mark. I don't think we're in trouble because of facts. I think we're in trouble because of messaging.
I think you're in huge trouble because of facts.
You guys were in office for a long time.
The reality is inflation's at a 40-year high because of specifically
the spending policy. You were in office for a long time and did nothing to fix immigration. You never passed a bill. You never got anything
because of what you guys have done.
We have an economic story to tell. People actually like our policies better on the economy.
You're kidding yourself.
And we have not been doing.
Michael.
And it really is the economy. When we come right down and talk about it, I talked about this a little bit on Friday. I can't remember if I said this on air or if I did this in a Discord chat, but one of the big things on the economy and why I focused on it, why I do 2 finance articles every single morning except for this morning, why I structure the show the way that I do, is because it is the economy. Now, let's say that Democrats actually are right for just a moment. And as soon as the midterms are over, abortion becomes illegal. The red robes come out. Women are chained to the stoves, barefoot, except in their red robes, to become breeding stock for the state. That is obviously the most hyperbolic thing that comes out here. But just let's say that for a second. First off, you would have to make the assumption that every single man in the country gets behind this, which they won't. Most of them will come out and protest. But with the economy, as long as the economy is doing well, people are well fed, as they see themselves being oppressed by a totalitarian government, they've got the means and the ability to fight in the courts, and, if possible, fight on the streets. If necessary, rather not possible, if necessary, fight in the streets. If you're starving to death, and your struggle is trying to keep your belly fed, and your kids fed, you don't have the energy, and a lot of times the ability, to fight for the imaginary right to kill your offspring. Or any number of other things that Democrats are trying to paint on Republicans. If you are so dependent on the state that you need it for your very survival, you are less likely to jump up and try to question that system. And I've noticed this on Democratic admins, too. It does seem like the big thing with that is to try to tank the economy over and over again and try to keep the poor people dependent on the state. But the more people who are not dependent on the state are the more people who can look back and question an authoritarian government and say, no. And people recognize this. That's why the most important thing is, can we bring fuel costs down? Can I heat my home? Can I feed my kids? With or without government intervention, can I do all these things? And yes, there is a possibility of doing it with. I understand that. But as more and more people get onto that, and the share of the pie that's going out to the people becomes less and less, or the dollar becomes more and more worthless, because it's all being provided by the government without a serious amount of production going back into it. That's when you start to see the big problems and people looking at this and saying, well, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because my kids come first. But all in all, like David Ramsey said, if you've got food in your belly and the roof over your head, you live to fight another day. As long as your basic needs are kept. You can debate the issues, the abortion rights, the authoritarian crackdown, the everything else. You can debate those another day. But first and foremost, primarily, it's the roof over your head and the food in your belly. And yes, they are going to have a very, very bad night. Most likely. I don't have a crystal ball, but most likely. But this is, by the way, what they're most afraid of. Asen tweets out a Biden video where he says what's going to happen if they win back the House and Senate. Let's listen.
Attack from the I'm already being told if they win back the House and
Okay, so that's a really quiet video, so I might actually have to re-narrate that and paraphrase that.
Attack from the I'm already being told if they win back the House and Senate, they're going to impeach me. I don't know what the hell they're impeaching me for. No, I'm not joking. And then recently they said we should stop talking about that until we win. Well, all kidding attack.
So what he said there is, man, if I've already been told that if they went back to the House and Senate, they're going to impeach me. I don't know what for. And all I can think to say with that is this show that they did for the first two impeachments of Donald Trump, and by the way, if he does wind up winning, there's probably going to be 6 or 7 more of those, is that you don't need an actual criminal charge anymore. You can literally do it all politically. That's not to say that Joe Biden doesn't have criminal dereliction of duty and charges they can bring forward to him, but they don't have to. They can do it because they don't like the color of his tie if they really wanted to. Under a simple majority, they can make it happen. A lot of the American people would probably laugh at them for that, but it's legally, feasibly possible. However, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff dealing with Hunter, dealing with the Ukraine, dealing with the money situation, what's going on over in the Ukraine, what's happening with Taiwan, what happened in the Ukraine before. The New York Post story probably comes to mind. And those are just a few that I can spitball up off the top of my head. I bet you they could find a charge to go back and vote to impeach every single week. I bet you that's possible. I wouldn't advise on it, but I bet you that's possible. From the Daily Wire, ABC's John Carl expresses concern that Republicans are going to investigate Biden if they win the midterms. Well, what are you afraid they're going to find? Let me see if this is cued.
We turn now to the
No, it's not cued. We might still go back and watch some of that, but it's not queued up to that point in the video. ABC News' John Carl fretted over the notion that Republicans would hold the Biden admin accountable if they win this week's midterm elections. During an interview with Governor Glenn Youngkin on This Week, Carl touched upon how Republican majorities in the House and Senate would be able to work with President Biden. I'm hearing a lot, though, of talk about investigations into Hunter, the FBI, all things Anthony Fauci, Carl said to Youngkin, who has been campaigning for Republicans across the country. Republicans talk about going, all in if they take control, particularly the House. Is that really what you're campaigning on, to have massive investigations into all? I think that the House and Senate and the White House are going to have to work and offer solutions, Youngkin responded. On top of that, our democracy, their hegemony, is better when our Congress exercises its responsibility for oversight. Oh, so that's actually not their hegemony. Youngkin actually was talking about our democracy. I'm sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. Usually when I hear somebody say, our democracy is at risk, it's our hegemony is at risk. They just don't say that part out loud. What about all this impeachment talk, Carl asked? I mean, I've gone through, I can count at least 3 members of the Biden cabinet that Republicans have talked about impeaching, and obviously there have already been impeachment resolutions introduced, many of them for Biden himself. Would that be a mistake for Republicans to go in with impeachment? Youngkin repeated, I believe our democracy is better when Congress exercises its oversight functions. Impeachment? The reality of this is that Virginians are going to vote for congressional representatives, and I think that we're going to see a number of seats flip, Youngkin responded, and they want them to go to work to deliver. Let's watch some of this. I'm not going to say that we're going to do all of this, but let's watch some of this. This is a 6-minute video. Me actually kind of page through the transcript here. See if I can get an idea of when they started talking about this. Okay, so it's actually not too far off from the beginning. Let's listen.
Republicans and Virginia Governor Glenn asked voter sentiment after what Republicans will.
And Republican gubernatorial candidates, because that people should vote for Republicans. Americans spend a lot of time with inflation, and they're worried about crime, and they're worried about their school. And Republicans have clear-cut, common-sense solutions to all of these. And what they've seen is that the liberal Democrats don't. And it's that clear right now.
Business. If Republicans take over the House and Senate,
found it.
How do they work with President Biden?
Well, first, I think they will both have majorities. And I think the statement on Tuesday is going to be pretty clear. And I think there will be a larger majority in the House than people may have thought a few months ago. And I think there'll be a clear majority in the Senate. And this is going to be a wake-up call to President Biden. And I hope he answers it, because what's happened over the last 2 years has really caused a lot of problems in America. I hope that President Biden sees what Americans are gonna say to him on Tuesday, which is we're not happy, and we need a different agenda. And I think that a Republican-led House and a Republican-led Senate are going to work to deliver on promises made. And I hope Joe Biden listens.
You know, I'm hearing a lot, though, of talk about investigations into Hunter Biden, FBI, all things Anthony Fauci, Republicans talking about going, you know, all in if they take control, particularly the House. Is that really what you're campaigning on, to have massive investigations into all?
And I think that the House and the Senate and the White House are going to have to go to work and offer solutions. On top of that, our democracy is better when our Congress exercises its responsibility for oversight, and they can also deliver answers. I think voters are going to make a statement on Tuesday, and they want their elected leaders to deliver results.
What about all this impeachment talk? I mean, I've gone through, I can count at least 3 members of the Biden cabinet that Republicans have talked about impeaching. And obviously, there have already been impeachment resolutions introduced, many of them, for Biden himself. Would that be a mistake for Republicans to go in?
Again, I believe strongly that our democracy is better when our Congress exercises its oversight functions.
Impeachment?
The reality of this is that Virginians are going to vote for congressional representatives, and I think that we're going to see a number of seats flip, and they want them to go to work to deliver.
But let me press you on that, though. I mean, common sense, kitchen table issues, that's what you've been talking about. Is that what voters have in mind, an impeachment of Joe Biden? Because, I mean, I'm hearing that a lot.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if
would that be a mistake? Is all I'm asking. Would that be a mistake to go into?
I can't speculate on what they're going to do, but what I can tell you
what they should do is what I'm asking.
Is they have done. Well, I'm a governor.
I know, but you're campaigning for members. You know,
I'm a governor in Virginia
for people to be in Congress.
And my job as governor in Virginia is to deliver for Virginians. Yeah. And oh, by the way, I think that Republicans offer answers that Democrats have failed to offer over and over and over again.
You were out in Arizona.
All right, and I mean, Youngkin is absolutely right off of that. They're trying to paint Youngkin into a corner with a video like this, with an interview like this, as all Republicans, their entire focus is on trying to impeach and embarrass the executive branch of the federal government. And Youngkin, even though he did talk about it extensively to a point that I probably would not have if I was sitting in Glenn's shoes at this point, did bring up and point out the fact that he doesn't have any any sort of decision-making process in what happens in the House of Representatives or the Senate. He is a governor for Virginia. It is his job to represent Virginia, partially to the federal government, but also work with the governors associations and the federal government to get the best results for Virginia. Not necessarily what the oversight does with Congress. That's not his job. How he handled that, I think, is probably maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It wasn't the worst thing. Like he didn't fail that, but he probably could have done that a little bit better. But that's what he had to say with that. What else do we have? Ah, yes. It's probably over in Arizona. Blake Masters for U.S. Senate Press. The press secretary for Blake Masters tweets out, new! Chuck Norris endorses Blake Masters for U.S. Senate in Arizona. I don't know, man. From Newsweek, a follow-up on that, Chuck Norris jumps into U.S. midterms backing key Senate candidate. From Xander Landon. Actor and martial artist Chuck Norris endorsed Republican candidate Blake Masters in the Arizona U.S. Senate race. Masters is challenging incumbent Democrat Senator Mark Kelly. While polling shows that Kelly has a lead over Masters, the Democrats' advantage has narrowed in recent weeks. The account retweeted another post about the endorsement, writing, Chuck Norris knows the results of Arizona before Fox News. I get what they're doing with that. Robbie Starbuck. The response there is it's a quote tweet, and Robbie Starbuck says, Chuck Norris does not simply endorse a candidate. He informs them of the results before anyone else knows it. In an article he wrote on WND.com and posted on his official Facebook page, Norris included Masters on his list of Chuck Norris-approved candidates. Chuck Norris is also the only person who can punch a cyclops between the eyes. Blake Masters, U.S. Senate candidate for Arizona, has far better leadership credentials and skills than his political opponent. To help all Arizonans, Norris wrote. According to polling average in the Senate race compiled by 538, Kelly is ahead by 2 points, leading Masters 48.1 to 46.1. Let's have a look. On the aggregate on RCP, actually, Kelly is up 5+1. But this is pre-Chuck Norris endorsement. Last polls to 11-2. So we'll see what happens with that one and where that one goes. And I do think that's another one where one of the upper ballot races is going to carry the other one over. And I think Kari Lake does have the star power and the ability to carry Blake Masters over the line. I think that's entirely possible. Some good news from congressional Democrats. From The Blaze, Democrats plot Nancy Pelosi's replacement in secret meeting. Report. From Chris Enlow. Hakeem Jeffries, the number 5 House Democrat, is reportedly a top candidate to replace Pelosi as the leader of the House Democrats. Jeffries reportedly met with Majority Whip Jim Clyburn in a secret meeting on September 1st while Congress was on recess. Politico reported at that meeting Jeffries likely secured Clyburn's support to become the next leader of the House Democrats. The 52-year-old New York Democrat purportedly summoned Clyburn after hearing that Adam Schiff is also privately vying for the position. Yeah, Schiff isn't going to get it. That one I can tell you. From Politico, the 52-year-old Jeffries was concerned enough that he offered to fly to South Carolina to seek the counsel of the 82-year-old Clyburn. The younger lawmaker wanted to gently make sure his elder in the Congress Black Caucus knew of Schiff's quiet campaign, and even more gently warned Clyburn about the risk of splitting votes between them and opening a path for the ambitious Californian. In an interview with Politico, Clyburn indicated that he would not block Jeffries from becoming the next leader. After all, Clyburn is 82, while Majority Leader Steny Hoyer is 83. There's nothing I would ever do to impede the progress of our up-and-coming young Democrats, and I see him as an up-and-coming young Democrat, Clyburn said. He knows that. I didn't have to tell him that, but I did. It is widely expected that if Democrats lose control of the House, which is almost certain, that Pelosi will step down from her position, even if she wins re-election to Congress. Pelosi has led the party for nearly 20 years, but at 83 years of age, many in the party believe it could be the right time for new leadership. Still, her fundraising prowess alone, she's raised more than $1.25 billion for Democrats during her tenure as leader, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper, will make her difficult to beat if she does not willingly concede control of her party. Does anybody have any popcorn? Because if I remember, I know what Adam Schiff is, and Adam Schiff is oversight, do whatever we can to get as much power, corporate Democrat, billionaire funded Democrat, etc. But Hakeem Jeffries is House Progressive Caucus, isn't he? Fanning, you would probably know better than that, because I think he's a city Democrat. I think that's your neck of the woods. Let's see exactly where he is. New York 8. 8. Okay, so we've got the map here. It's going to be a little hard to see because if I blow it up, it's going to take the lines out of there. But it looks like it goes, and I don't know enough about New York, but it looks like it encompasses some of Brooklyn, from what I can see for there, out to Long Beach and Valley Stream. Up along a bay here of some sort. Let's actually blow up the map here so now we can see what we're looking at. Well, given the fact that Brooklyn College is there, I'm guessing that this all encompasses Brooklyn. So it kind of goes around a major portion of Brooklyn. Not quite getting out to the airport. But more looking off of this, I do believe he is a part of the House Progressive Caucus, is he not? Okay, part of Eastern Brooklyn and Southwestern Queens, according to this. And it would be interesting, with that being said, that if he is a part of the House Progressive Caucus, to see where the battle lines actually lie between corporate Democrats and the House Progressives. And I don't think the corporate machine, the Nancy Pelosi machine, the California machine, would willingly give up power like that either. So, I do think it's time for Nancy to go. I really do. But where it all goes from there, I'm not sure. I don't know. Got some news about evil, right wing, will block anything that Democrats do. Amy Coney Barrett, who didn't block anything Democrats do. From Reuters. Supreme Court's Barrett again declines to block Biden's student debt relief. To which Call to Activism jumped up and said, "This is our victory lap! We've won! Student debt is over! Now we have nothing to campaign on." In spite of the fact that it's actually still sequestered. What's the other word I'm looking for? Not blocked is the word I'm looking for, but there's a legal term for it, and I can't think of it right now, right off the hand. But it's still blocked in the 8th Circuit. Stayed. That's the word I'm looking for. Stayed. U.S. Supreme Court's Barrett again declines to block Biden's student debt relief from Nate Raymond. Amy Coney Barrett on Friday again declined to block President Biden's plan to cancel billions of dollars in student debt, this time in a challenge brought by 2 Indiana borrowers, even as a lower court considers whether to lift a freeze it imposed on the program in a different case. Barrett denied an emergency request by the Indiana borrowers, represented by a conservative legal group, to bar the U.S. Department of Education from implementing the Democratic president's plan to forgive debt held by qualified people who had taken loans to pay for college. Barrett on October 20th denied a similar request by a Wisconsin taxpayers organization, represented by another conservative legal group. The justice acted in the cases because she is the justice assigned to handle certain emergency requests from a group of states that includes Indiana and Wisconsin. The St. Louis-based 8th Circuit on October 21st put the policy on hold in yet another conservative challenge by 6 Republican-led states. While it considered their request for injunction, that's the word I was looking for, injuncted. That's the word I was looking for. Pending their appeal of the case's dismissal, that request remains pending. Biden's plan, unveiled in August, designed to give up to $10,000 in student loan debt for anyone making less than $1.8 million, or $250,000 for married couples. Borrowers who receive Pell Grants to benefit lower-income college students would have up to $20,000 of their debt canceled. So, well, I don't think that this is right. But it's funny that the person that they demonize the hardest as being a partisan who would stop at nothing to end President Biden's agenda has actually been the friendliest to it. Have you noticed that? I have. One from my neck of the woods here, from the Daily Wire. Egg all over their face. Major Wisconsin newspaper adds correction to hit piece on Republican governor candidate. From Leaf LeMahieu. Wisconsin's largest newspaper added a major correction to an article it published about the state's Republican gubernatorial candidate just days before voters in the Badger State head to the polls. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel published a story Thursday that claimed that Michaels Corporation, co-owned by Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michaels, employed no black employees in management positions. By Friday, the outlet had added a major top-line correction to the story to note the diversity concerns in question were not for the whole company, which employs about 8,000 people, but one subsidiary in deep, deep blue Illinois. An earlier version of the story incorrectly said that public documents showed Michaels Corp. does not have black employees in management positions. Company employees said that after the initial publication of the story, that documents pertain only to one subsidiary of Michaels Corp. The outlet added to the top story. The headline was changed from Michaels Corp. does not have black employees in management positions, according to public documents, to lack of diversity at Michaels Corp. subsidiary raised equal employment opportunity concerns for Illinois contract. According to the company, minorities or women actually make up about 17.3% of middle or upper management positions throughout the company, as conservative outlet Wisconsin Right Now pointed out. Black people in various management positions can be found by searching LinkedIn. The diversity concerns were publicized by the left-leaning SEIU, Wisconsin State Council, a lobbying state group. A source close to the Michaels campaign told the Daily Wire that the Journal-Sentinel had egg all over its face thanks to the story and subsequent correction. Now, my big question for that is the correction on the front page, or did they bury it way down at the bottom of page 17? Now, the online publication obviously is going to be very different, but did they continue to go with this, or are they continuing to try to push this? I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Under Republicans, not another penny will go to Ukraine. Based from Julia Shapiro. Now, again, as a person who protested war against Republicans for many, many years, not that many, I think it was like 6. Yeah, it was 6. Because I turned 18 in 02. And by 08, I was jumping off the Democrat train. So yeah, for 6 years. Who protested against war because Republicans were the leading warmongers at the time. I will believe this when I see it. And I know a lot of Republicans on the Hill have voted for the 8 packages already. From Julia Shapiro, who writes, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene promised on Thursday that not another penny will go to Ukraine if Republicans retake control of Congress in Tuesday's midterm elections. The only border they care about is Ukraine, not America's southern border, Greene said of Democrats at a Trump rally in Sioux City, Iowa. Under Republicans, not another penny will go to Ukraine. Our country comes first. They don't care about our border or our people. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy similarly suggested last month that Republicans would rein in Ukraine spending. Again, I will believe that when I see it. If they retake the House, as the GOP appears poised to do, though he stopped far short of saying the faucet would be shut off entirely. That's more like the Republican Party I know. Ukraine is important. That's more like the Republican Party that I know. But at the same time, it can be the only thing, and it can't be a blank check, McCarthy told Punchbowl News in October. The comments earned McCarthy a backlash from Democrats as well as some of his fellow Republicans. The House Minority Leader appears to be at odds with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has spearheaded Republican support for Ukraine aid. That's more like the Republican Party I know. Well, we've got to make sure that we get all that money over there, and just don't look over the fact that we suddenly have that almost that exact same amount of money coming back into our campaigns and our coffers here in some of our pockets. Don't worry about any of that. That's just for business interests. That has nothing else to do with anything else there. It just happens to be that we have some of our investments over in the Ukraine. Don't worry about it. But of course, if you go to the other side of this, and as the war machine starts turning, Adam Kinzinger, noted war pig, Adam Kinzinger accused McCarthy of giving aid and comfort to the enemy with his remarks and suggested the minority leader was trying to appease the far right wing of the party in his quest to be speaker. That's the Republican Party I'm more familiar with. Greene, a far right supporter of former President Trump, she's not far right, had warned that the Republican base would be unhappy if McCarthy did not give her more power in the House next term. Dude, how do you look at this woman and not say plant? I agree with a lot of what she says. It's just the fact that she happens to say the right thing at the right time to go energize Republicans and get Democrats completely angry. Just a little bit too perfectly for my tastes. And yes, I am in the camp of turn off the faucet. Let Ukraine figure it out on their own. If they didn't want to figure it out on their own, they should have joined an alliance before Crimea. They knew their borders were embattled. They knew Putin was licking his chops. Even after Crimea, that would have been the first time when I looked up and said, hey, can we get a formal alliance somewhere? But help out. Help out fellow actor. I am actor, you are actor. Let us make alliance. Alright, we have Obama's closing message to voters in Philadelphia because, well, they have to go drag this guy out of retirement. You remember when W finally got out of office? When W was out of office and he didn't make public appearances anymore? I remember. Kind of wish this dude would do that. Let's listen.
There's this common thread. There's this thing that binds us together as Americans. A belief that no matter who we are, or where we come from, what we look like, who we love, what our last name is, how we worship, a belief that all of us matter. The kind of slash and burn politics that we're seeing right now, that doesn't have to be who we are. We can be better. And it has nothing to do, by the way, with political correctness or being too woke. It's about fundamental values that my grandparents from Kansas taught me. Values I grew up with, values you grew up with, values we try to teach our kids, values we learn in churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. Honesty, fairness, opportunity, hard work, values that Josh...
Is anybody else getting a televangelist vibe from this dude? Like, this is the kind of stuff that you'd hear from Joel Osteen.
Shapiro and John Fetterman stand for. Values that Joe Biden stands for. Values that...
The values! And worship the government! And the government will set you free and make you safe and financially dependent. But you'll never have to worry again. And these people, like Josh Shapiro, they may trash your ability to make an income, but you can be dependent on them.
That were enshrined in our founding documents a few miles from here. A clarion call for freedom and equality that Philly's own Liberty Bell represents. That's what America stands for. That's who we are. So if you're anxious and frustrated right now, don't complain, don't mope, don't tune out. Get off your couch and do what? Put down your phones and do what? Vote for Josh Shapiro. Vote for John Fetterman. Vote for leaders who will fight for you and your families. Vote for folks who will fight for that big, inclusive, hopeful, forward-looking America that we believe in.
Vote for people who will give away money without question, as long as you're not one of those evil Republicans. Put down your phone and vote.
Who will work with Joe Biden to build a country that is more fair and more just and more equal and more free. That's our task. Let's get to work. I love you, Philly.
Sources telling CNN, George, that...
There you go, Obama's final speech. I'm curious, too, as to why he was screaming like that at the end. I really am. Do you think the CIA super drugs kicked in? Are they giving him something, the same thing like what they're giving Biden? I don't know. However, the other pitch that goes the other way, Joe Biden vows to shut down coal plants all across America. Joe Manchin fires back with a stern counterattack. It is time that he learn a lesson. From Paul Saka. And yes, we have video of this. President Biden vowed to shut down coal plants all across America. During a speech on Friday, Joe Manchin from West Virginia shot back at the president and demanded that he apologize for his remarks. Biden claimed that coal plants cost too much money. Let's listen. And then we'll hear what Manchin had to say.
So it's going to become a wind generation. And all they're doing is going to save them a hell of a lot of money and using the same transmission line that transmitted the coal-fired electric.
What?
We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar. So it's going to become a wind generation. And all they're doing is going to save them a hell of a lot of money, and using the same transmission line that transmitted the coal-fired electric on. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar.
Now, it goes to note off of this that the speech that he just gave right there came at a highly progressive event in California. But, I mean, one of the things that you've got to know when you're president at this point, and I do understand that this guy comes from a generation where he could spew all kinds of off-the-wall stupid crap. And at the time, you didn't necessarily hear it because it would turn out bad for him. It wouldn't get televised. It would go back and get scrubbed by the newsprint and either posted online or in a hard paper publication what it is that they wanted to hear him say. I don't quite think that he's used to the fact that the internet exists, and when he says crap like this, that it gets recorded and either live streamed or distributed. And everybody knows the stupid thing that he said. He doesn't have the newspaper to cover for him anymore. On Saturday, Manchin fired back at Biden on his plan to shut down coal plants, which would severely impact his home state of West Virginia. Mountain Mama. President Biden's comments are not only outrageous and divorced from reality, they ignore the severe economic pain the American people are feeling because of rising energy costs, Manchin began his statement. Comments like these are the reason the American people are losing trust in President Biden and instead believes that he does not understand the need to have an all-in energy policy that would keep our nation totally energy independent and secure. The senator from West Virginia continued. It seems his position changed depending on the audience and the politics of the day. And that's where I'm actually coming out and pointing out the fact that when the news media can come back out and scrub what it is that he has to say without it being transmitted out live or video recording clip and bypassing because of Twitter the news media entirely, then yes, he can go out to the Greenpeace and the Green parties and say, "Oh yes, we're going to shut down all energy, and you'll have to power your own, but it'll be clean and it'll be pure, and we'll make sure that the people that you don't like, the billionaires you don't like, will be energy independent," and then turn around and go to the International Association of Billionaire Business Leaders who donate to Democrats and say, "Oh yes, no, we're going to pass all those laws that you can afford. Yes, no, we know you're not going to like the laws, but we won't enforce them to you. But we're going to pass all those because we don't want your competitors to be able to compete in an equal market with you." And then turn around and go off to the socialists and say, "Oh, those billionaires over there are nothing but bad people to you, and they're the cause of all your problems. So vote for me and we'll get rid of every billionaire who ever lived and make them all just like you." And they can say all these things behind closed doors to all these groups. Manchin stressed, "Let me be clear, this is something the president has never said to me." Being cavalier about the loss of coal jobs for men and women in West Virginia and across the country who literally put their lives on the line to help build and power this country is offensive and disgusting, he said. I have to wonder how that affects Josh Shapiro up in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is another big coal mining state. Manchin concluded that by demanding an apology from Biden, the president owes these incredible workers an immediate and public apology, and it's time he learned a lesson that his words matter and have consequences. White House Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire issued a statement in response to Manchin's criticisms. President Biden knows that men and women of coal country built this nation, and they powered its steel mills and factories, and kept its homes and schools and offices warm. They made this the most productive and powerful nation on earth. The diversity hire then switched the subject to the unemployment rate in West Virginia. We're working closely with Senator Manchin, a tireless advocate for his state and the hardworking men and women who live there. President Biden has helped get this part of the country back to work. The unemployment rate in West Virginia was 6.2% last month before Biden took office, and now it's down to 4%. And again, realistically, you're coming out here and you're being the champion of unions. And then telling union workers, just typically when you're in a mining field, especially, I mean, that was the kind of job, that and some of the unsafe factories, those were the kinds of jobs that demanded a union right in the beginning. Rightfully so. Because people were dying every day that they went to work. And the robber barons coming in at the time didn't care. So then to come back out and look at union workers who've held that proud tradition and say, yeah, I'm going to shut down your job. What a prick. Another one from The Blaze. Shocking video shows female Lee Zeldin supporter being choked during a Kathy Hochul rally. I bet you the president doesn't talk about this when he talks about political violence. From Paul Saka. Video shows the shocking moment that a female supporter of Zeldin was choked by a man during a rally for Governor Hochul. With the elections quickly approaching, Hochul held a rally near the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAMTYRALGMXTY+sign landmark of the Stonewall Inn on Saturday night. A young woman protested the rally while holding a sign that read, "Vote Red and vote them out," with a photo of Hochul on it. The Twitter account Viral News New York captured the video of the choking attack and interviewed the woman after the incident. The woman, identified as Angelica Torres, said the violence started after someone allegedly stole her sign from her. And there is the video. We'll look at just a little bit more of this article, and then we'll go watch that. I was here and holding my sign in peaceful protest against, Governor Hochul, and a woman, a very large, heavyset woman, I'm assuming, might have been a man, came and took my sign, she explained. Might have been a man. As I was trying to retrieve my sign, there was another man that came and choked me, and there were two other people that were coming and preventing me from trying to get my sign, the unidentified woman claimed. Video shows a man violently grabbing the woman's neck and choking her. Never wanted to get physical with anyone. I was just here peacefully just holding my sign, and, they don't want to hear what I had to say, she added. Well, let's watch the video. From Viral News New York. And then the interview following.
You can deny science. You can deny those who seek to fight. You can deny an election like those individuals. And we say, hell no. Hell no. They are election deniers. And they will deny a woman's right to choose. Exactly. You can deny science. You can deny those.
Yeah, it's really hard. That's not even a heat of the moment thing. That's like he's going directly for that. He's got one hand on the back. That's exactly where he was going for. He hit right where he wanted. That was not a hand on the chest to try to push back. That was not anything. That was choke and go. Let's keep listening.
So this woman was choked earlier at the Hochul rally. Can you please tell me what happened?
I was here holding my sign and peaceful protest against Governor Hochul, and a woman, a very large, heavy-set woman, I'm assuming, might have been a man, came and took my sign. As I was trying to retrieve my sign, there was another man who came and choked me, and there was 2 other people that were coming and preventing me from trying to get my sign. Never want to get physical with anyone. I was just there peacefully just holding my sign, and, they didn't want to hear what I had to say.
You can deny science. You can
I think that was a dude.
deny those who seek to.
In fact, I'm pretty positive that's a dude. But I bet you that's not going to make the top of the Joe Biden. What's wrong with what? Joe. The political violence is so bad, and it's led by Republicans against my friend Paul Pelosi. From the Daily Wire, Carrie Lake after Hillary Clinton badmouthing. I want you to know I'm not suicidal. But see, do you have information that could lead to the arrest of the Clintons? From Tim Pierce. Carrie Lake joked that she's not suicidal after becoming the target of Hillary Clinton's ire in recent days. But I was a little concerned today. I'm going to be honest, when I saw Hillary badmouthing me, and she looked angry and actually scared, completely unrelated. I want you to know, just in case you're wondering, I'm in perfect health. The brakes in my car are in good shape, and I'm not suicidal, Lake said during an appearance on Fox News Thursday. And we're going to win this thing. Let's listen.
But I was a little concerned today, I'm going to be honest, when I saw Hillary Clinton bad-mouthing me, and she looked angry and actually scared and just completely unrelated. I want you to know, just in case you're wondering, I'm in perfect health, my brakes on my car are in good shape, and I'm not suicidal. And we're going to win this thing on Tuesday.
Let's see. We know who Hillary Clinton is. She criticized Lake earlier this week over comments the Arizona gubernatorial candidate made about an illegal immigrant's attack on House Speaker Pelosi's husband. At a Monday campaign event, Lake said Nancy Pelosi, well, she's got protection when she's in D.C. Apparently her house doesn't have a lot of protection. Clinton took issue with Lake's comments because of partisan reasons and nothing else on Thursday while she was in New York campaigning for Governor Hochul. Hochul is in a tight race against Lee Zeldin, which should not be the case. I do still think that Kathy Hochul is going to win this, but there's no business in it being this close. If Kathy Hochul doesn't win by at least 10 points, she lost. An intruder hits an 82-year-old man in the head with a hammer who happens to be married to the Speaker of the House, and Republicans joke about it. The woman running for governor in Arizona jokes about it, Clinton said at a campaign event. Now, why would any sensible person want to give power to somebody who thinks it's funny that a person gets assaulted in his own home? So, they don't care about keeping you safe. They want to keep you scared so that you can't think straight. Now, hurry up and go get your last jab, otherwise you might cough once and die. Yeah, I have that article too. In fact, it's the next one. From the USA Today, suspicious envelope with white substance found at Carrie Lake's Arizona headquarters. From Ellie Willard and Lillian Boyd. Authorities are investigating after an envelope containing a white substance was discovered by staff at GOP gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake's campaign headquarters on Saturday. Ross Trumbull, a spokesperson for the Lake campaign, confirmed that a member of the campaign staff opened an envelope delivered to the office that contained suspicious white powder. It was one of 2 envelopes that were confiscated by law enforcement and sent to professionals at Quantico to be thusly ignored. For examination. And we are awaiting details, Trumbull said. The FBI operates state-of-the-art crime lab facilities in Quantico, a town in Northern Virginia. Phoenix Fire Department was dispatched to a building near 40th Street and Camelback Road about 2 a.m. Sunday on reports of a suspicious envelope that had been mailed in. According to police, the law enforcement personnel responded to collect the items and secure the area. There have been no reports of injury, and the investigation remains active, said Sergeant Phil Krinsky, a spokesperson for the police department. The staff member is currently under medical supervision, Trumbull said. Just 2 days before Election Day, our campaign headquarters remain shut down. We look forward to law enforcement completing their investigation as quickly as possible. Is it anthrax? Probably not. Is it coke? Probably not. One is notoriously hard to come by. The other is prohibitively expensive. It's just like the people who say that you're going to get edibles and fentanyl in your candy, when both of them are prohibitively expensive to go back and just give away to random kids in your neighborhood. But is it powdered sugar that was sent there probably to cause terror? Oh yeah. Maybe asbestos. That could be another one too. But regardless, something mostly benign, possibly partially hazardous, meant to cause fear and terror and shut the campaign headquarters down. So this one is heating up. From WFIN.com. There's an AM radio station. Does not tell me where this is out of. Let's see if we can find out where this is out of quick. Ohio. It's an AM radio station out of Ohio. Democrat poll worker ejected for pre-selecting straight Dem ticket on voting machines report. I've not pre-read this article, and I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this. I mean, if I take this at its face value, I didn't think that it was even possible to do anything like that. But there again, I live in a paper ballot state too, so do keep that in mind. No author given. An Indiana election official reportedly ejected a Democrat poll worker over allegations that he had pressured poll goers against voting for certain candidates and even pre-selected Democrats on voting machines last week, according to the Hamilton County Republican Party. The alleged incident took place at a polling place in Carmel, Indiana, under the Hamilton County Election Office. Hamilton County Election admin Beth Scheller identified the poll worker to local media as James Zhang, saying the voters had reported two separate incidences that may constitute electioneering and election interference. County GOP Chairman Mario Masalamani told Fox News Digital. Zhang's removal, first reported by Chalkboard Review Executive Director Tony Kinnett, is now reportedly being investigated by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, and Scheller says that she hopes to see Zhang prosecuted. The first incident took place early Thursday evening as a group of education activists stood outside the Carmel polling place and advocated for pro-parent school board candidates. Officials say that Zhang spoke with several black voters who entered the polling station and urged them not to vote for the pro-parent candidates, arguing the activists outside were racist. Yeah, that is electioneering, and that's against the law. Masalamani says Zhang encouraged the voters to instead cast their ballots for Democrats. Well, that's against the law. 100 feet. An inspector at the polling station soon learned that the incident and contacted Scheller, who started making her way towards the polling station, Masalamani said. Cecil Moran of Newark received some help casting his ballots on one of the electronic voting machines from poll workers Liz Warbs and Alex Jones, the American Legion Post 85 on Election Day. Oh, there's a picture that's supposed to be there from an original Reuters article. I don't know why I'm reading that as part of the... Well, I know why I'm reading that as part of the article, because the picture is missing, but that wound up being the caption. Prior to her arrival, the inspector learned of additional incidents, a potential election interference from voters. Massalamani said Zhang had repeatedly selected Democrat candidates down the entire ballot on voting machines while ostensibly assisting people with casting their ballots. Several people reportedly complained that they did not know how to change the selections back after Zhang pre-selected all Democratic candidates. Yeah, that's electioneering. It's against the law. Hegemony, not democracy. Massalamani argued the incident raised questions about how many voters had been confused after receiving help from Zhang, but had not complained to other officials. Scheller and the polling inspector had Zhang removed, and Scheller announced on Friday that he would not be allowed back into the polling station on election day. She also called for his prosecution in a statement to Chalkboard. Massalamani condemned the incident in a Saturday statement. This should serve as a cautionary reminder that those desperate to hold on to power or gain power will do anything, including breaking the law, to thwart efforts of parents and taxpayers to replace our school board with officials who more accurately reflect the values of our community, he said. A little bit of cope for you here, because let's remind you of what that poll looks like. Abrams versus Kemp. Look at all those polls that Abrams led in. Look at all that aggregate that Abrams led in. Stacey Abrams says her poll numbers are low because black men can't see through misinformation. Dude, just concede at this point. You continually say things that are more and more racist every day. From Virginia Kruta. Oh, and we get video of it too. Georgia gubernatorial hopeful Stacey Abrams claimed over the weekend that her poll numbers were lagging in part because black men were unable to see through the misinformation that was being used to target them. This is during a recent appearance on MSDNC. Let's listen.
And I do not believe it's because of a deep well of enthusiasm for my opponent. We know that black voters are often discounted, and unfortunately this year black men have been a very targeted population for misinformation. Not misinformation about what they want, but about why they want what they deserve. And my campaign has been the only one that has very intentionally, thoughtfully, and consistently reached out. That has been misconstrued as concern, when indeed it's just respect.
They can't see through the misinformation. Are they too stupid? Abrams began by saying she did not believe the polls, which have so far suggested her support among black male voters has dropped off since her last attempt at the Georgia governor's mansion meant that there was any real enthusiasm for Kemp. She keeps saying racist stuff. Giuliani went on to suggest that rather than misinformation, perhaps it was Kemp's focus on jobs that accounted for the swing in support. I think there's a pretty simple reason Kemp might be doing better with black men than he did in 2018, Giuliani tweeted. A few days ago, he was in the groundbreaking of a Hyundai electric vehicle plant outside Savannah, the largest economic development in Georgia history. It's jobs. It's the economy. Kemp announced the project, which will create over 8,000 new jobs and see Hyundai investing more than $5.5 billion into Georgia's economy last May. My commitment to hardworking Georgians is to make our state the best place to live, work, and raise our families. remain steadfast, and with this announcement, which is now the largest economic development project in our state's history, we will continue working to make Georgia the premier destination for quality companies who are creating jobs of today, tomorrow, and beyond, he said at the same time. So, I love how Democrats just keep saying racist stuff and don't get called on it. Another voting machine one here from The Blaze. Registered Democrat in Colorado arrested for reportedly tampering with a voting machine with a USB thumb drive. But don't worry, they can't be tampered with. Freest and fairest and most secure election in history, from Paul Saka. A Colorado man was arrested Thursday after he was accused of tampering with a voting machine. The 31-year-old man allegedly committed a voting crime when he inserted a USB thumb drive into a voting machine. Richard Patton of Pueblo was arrested without incident on suspicion of committing a voter crime during the primary election in June. On the afternoon of June 28th, poll workers heard noises coming from a voting booth. When a poll worker went to investigate and clean the machine, they saw an error message and notified a supervisor, CBS News reported. Tamper evidence seals on the machine appeared to be disturbed, and the secretary's office said the machine was immediately taken out of service for investigation. ABC reported election officials in Colorado used locks and tamper evidence seals on voting equipment, so it becomes apparent if someone has tried to access it. Trigger alerts make machines inoperable if someone tries to tamper with them. Local authorities were informed of a potential breach to a voting system at a voting station in Pueblo. CBS News reported that Patton allegedly inserted a USB thumb drive into a voting machine at a polling station during the primary election in June, authorities said. Patton did vote on that day. Patton was identified because he presented his driver's license as ID to poll workers before he voted, according to Gilbert Ortiz, Pueblo County's clerk and recorder. The Pueblo Police Department said in a statement, detectives from the Pueblo Police Department High-Tech Crime Unit were able to identify 31-year-old Richard Patton as the suspect in the attempted to tamper with the voting station. The Pueblo Police Department noted, "We would like to assure the community that all voter safeguards put into place to protect the voter process were successful. No information has been found to be breached at this time." The Pueblo Police Department said Patton was booked on charges of tampering with voting equipment, a felony in cybercrime, unauthorized access, a misdemeanor. He was being held without bond at the Pueblo County Judicial Center. But don't worry, it's not widespread. Here's one that, while I may necessarily agree with, I think was still a stupid decision. From WSAV. Trump jabs at DeSantis during rally. Run, the sanctimonious. Again from Julia Shapiro. Former President Trump took aim at Ron DeSantis at a campaign rally on Saturday, coining the nickname Ron DeSanctimonious for the politician who's widely viewed as Trump's greatest competition for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024, which we at The Hill are astroturfing because our primary is going to be messy, so we want the other one to be messy too. Trump called out his potential rival at Saturday's rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, while also continuing to tease his own run in 2024. This is the year we're going to take back the House, we're going to take back the Senate, we're going to take back America, we're going to make it great again, we're going to take it back, and in 2024, most importantly, we're going to take back our magnificent, oh so beautiful White House. Everybody, I promise you, in the very next, very, 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 very short period of time, you're going to be so happy. The happiest you've ever been. So happy. Axios reported on Friday that Trump's team is considering launching his presidential bid on November 14th, less than a week after voters head to the polls in midterm elections. However, Trump all but confirmed his imminent announcement, suggesting that he would announce if he wasn't stumping for Pennsylvania GOP Senate candidate Mehmet Oz and Republican gubernatorial nominee Doug Mastriano. One of the reasons I don't want to do that right now, because I'd like to do it. I'm going to tell you I'm doing it, but I'm not going to tell you that I'm doing it, okay? Just pay attention. Watch the bouncing ball. Is that I want to focus on Dr. Oz, the wonderful Dr. Oz, anti-gun, wonderful person, supported me, you know, and Doug Mastriano. Most polls show Trump leading DeSantis in a potential matchup for the Republican nomination. However, the Florida governor remains the greatest threat to the former president, while other potential nominees, such as former Vice President Pence and former Representative Liz Cheney, appear further behind. As Trump heads to Miami for a rally with Marco Rubio, little Marco, I said bad things about him on the campaign trail, but I'm going to come out here, I'm going to make him, he's going to be my wonderful new person here. On Sunday, the former president will maintain his distance from DeSantis, who is notably not invited to the rally, Politico reported. DeSantis will instead attend 3 of his own rallies on Sunday, as part of a 13-city blitz announced after the Trump rally was scheduled, according to Politico. Here's the thing. 2 things can be true at once. Now, this could be a tremendously stupid thing to do. And I'm pretty positive, this is just me looking at this, knowing Trump's New York personality, his Manhattan personality, and then seeing him be both in the spotlight on, Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire in The Office, plus his presidential campaign. I do think Styx is wrong about this, and partially it's because of who Donald Trump is. I don't think that he wants to just be handed the nomination, as most people expect that he will be. If he gets in, a lot of states will suspend their primary processes because he's got the technical incumbency, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants the biggest and brightest challengers out there because he wants to be the David and Goliath story to overcome over all odds. And I think he is calling Ron DeSantis out to make sure that he doesn't stay home. But as far as this goes, will this shift the race back over for Donald? Or I'm sorry, for DeSantis? Will this move a bunch of stuff in favor of Crist? Probably not. I don't think Crist has a chance at this point. But it's still tremendously stupid. Now, from where I'm sitting, in my personal opinion, I think he's right. I think that that's a very, very accurate name, Ron DeSanctimonious. But I've been completely against Ron DeSantis pretty much since I found out about who he was. But it still doesn't help anybody for him to go back out on the campaign trail and say that. And as teased in the other article, Scoop, Trump team eyes November 14th announcement from Jonathan Swan. Former President Trump's inner circle is discussing announcing the launch of a 2024 presidential campaign on November 14th, with the official announcement possibly followed by a multi-day series of political events, according to 3 sources familiar with the sensitive discussions. Trump and his top advisors have been signaling for weeks that a 24 announcement is imminent, But those discussions have reached their point that allies are blocking off days in their calendars for the week after the midterms and preparing to travel. With polls pointing towards a good night for Republicans on Tuesday, Trump planned to surf the GOP's expected post-midterm euphoria to build a momentum for his own effort to retake the White House. Look for Trump to take credit for Republican victories across the board, including those he propelled with his endorsements and even those he had nothing to do with. Trump has long planned to announce shortly after the midterms and even toyed with announcing before November 8th. In an effort to get ahead of political rivals for the GOP's 2024 nomination, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, whom Axios is astroturfing up to the top. And I think a lot of us know that he's going to run. And again, I don't necessarily think that he wants to go back and run and just win. I think he wants the battle. He wants to be the underdog and still win. All right, and that is our last slew of midterm news before we all start going out to the polls. Hopefully we won't have to sit back and do this for, how long have we been doing this for? Almost 2 hours tomorrow. But hey, we might see some crazy stuff before we get there. Let's talk Elon. From CNBC, Elon has pulled more than 50 Tesla employees into his Twitter takeover. From Laura Kolodny. I'm actually going to skip over this one because we've talked. This is from October 31st. This is over a week old. I didn't check the date on that one. But the layoffs are here, and we'll talk about that. Elon Musk's Twitter lays off employees across the company. From Donnie O'Sullivan and Claire Duffy. Twitter on Friday laid off thousands of employees in departments across the company in a severe round of cost-cutting that would potentially upend how one of the world's most influential platforms operates a week after it was acquired by billionaire Elon Musk. Numerous Twitter employees began posting on the platform Thursday night and Friday morning that they had already been locked out of the company email accounts ahead of the planned layoff notification. Some also shared blue hearts and salute emojis, indicating they were out at the company. By Friday, Twitter employees from departments including ethical AI, marketing and communication, search, public policy, wellness, and other teams had tweeted about having been let go. Members of the curation team, which help elevate reliable information on the platform, including about elections, were also laid off, according to employee posts. Just got remotely logged out of my work laptop and removed from Slack, one Twitter employee said on the platform. So sad it had to end this way. Another employee said that she and other members of Twitter's human rights team had been laid off. The employee added that she is proud of the team's work to protect those at risk in global conflicts and crises, including Ethiopia, Afghanistan, and Ukraine, and to defend the needs of those particularly at risk of human rights abuse by virtue of their social media presence, such as journalists and human rights defenders. Oh my God. How can you be that victimized? Simon Balmain, a former Twitter senior community manager who was laid off on Friday, said in an interview with CNN that he lost access to Slack, email, and other internal systems around 8 hours before receiving an email Friday, officially notifying them he'd been fired, he added that the layoff email still didn't provide any details, really, about why he'd been let go. The ways of annoyance and frustration and all that stuff are absolutely mitigated by the extreme solidarity that we've seen from people that are in the company, people that are in the same position, people that left the company in years gone by, Balmain said. It's like a giant support network, which has been absolutely amazing. One Twitter employee who was laid off told CNN Friday that some workers are relieved to have been let go. For me, being safe would have been a punishment, one employee said. Yeah, he's cleaning house, and I do... From what I understand of the tech company, and this by now is hearsay for me. I know a lot of people are reporting this as if they know this personally. For me, this is hearsay, and I'm going to come right out and say this is hearsay for me. from what I understand from all of this, when we look at something like this, when we see what's happening here, according to people that are familiar with the matter, Twitter rather, was like 10 managers per developer coder. And it does seem like it was a lot of boys club and people just getting jobs for other people, so for the sake of having jobs. It does seem, according to the reports that they have, that it was massively overstaffed. And a lot of people were just going in there because I work at Twitter. I am prestigious. I can decide who has a blue check and who doesn't. And if we happen to get somebody who doesn't agree with me politically, socially, I can get rid of that person as a manager. But again, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. It's realistically one of the things that makes me nervous about watching the battle on Twitter is the fact that Elon does happen, it seems to be, I shouldn't say it happens to be, it does seem to be going whichever way the left wants him to go. More Elon news. Battlebird. Musk warns of thermonuclear war against companies caving to far-left boycott demands. After the announcements on permanent bans here, I'm going to say that this is going to go right out the window as soon as somebody on the left cries foul. And I said from the beginning, I mean, Elon's not your friend. He's a mild reformer at best. From Ryan Saavedra. New Twitter CEO Elon Musk warned that companies that continue to cave to boycott demands from the far left will face serious consequences, as he will publicly name and shame them to his more than 100 million Twitter followers. The world's richest man, who said he bought the company for $44 billion in order to reserve a corner of the public square for open dialogue and free expression, induced leftist ire after he officially took over the platform last week. Yeah, we know about all that. Musk said a number of advertisers had ended their relationship with the company over the past several days, dealing a significant blow to the business. Well, I know that he was trying to make this non-ad driven, so... Musk responded to a tweet that encouraged him to name and shame the companies that are boycotting the platform. You have nearly... No, that's the tweet says. You have nearly 114 million Twitter followers. Name and shame the advertisers who are succumbing to the advertiser boycotts, the tweet said. So we can counter boycott them and get your $8 monthly subscription going ASAP so we can start to make up for lost revenue now. Thank you. A thermonuclear name and shame is exactly what will happen if this continues. The account that Musk responded to made the remarks in response to a separate tweet from Musk earlier in the day that revealed the massive loss in revenue the company has experienced. Twitter has had a massive drop in revenue due to activist groups pressuring advertisers, even though nothing has changed with content moderation, and we did everything we could do to appease the activists. Well, that's your first problem right there. Musk remarked on the platform, extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. A member of the leftist-aligned organizations, including Media Matters for America, the NAACP, and the National Center for Transgender Equality, and the Union of Concerned Scientists recently wrote a letter to the executives of major advertisers calling them to cease all advertising if Musk backs down from content moderation. Not only are extremists celebrating Musk's takeover of Twitter, they're seeing it as a new opportunity to post the most abusive, harassing, and racist language and imagery, the organizations alleged. This includes clear threats of violence against people with whom they disagree without deliberate efforts. Well, you mean like the left did forever on the platform? Without deliberate efforts by Twitter to address this type of abuse and hate, your brands will be actively supporting accelerating extremism. You know, like they did up until Musk took over. And Twitter was a cesspool, by the way, and it was full of violent threats. If it was a violent threat against somebody that disagreed with the mainline narrative of Twitter, they usually didn't get investigated. Here's the best part. A number of large corporations, including Pfizer, you don't say. Volkswagen, Mondelez International, and General Mills have temporarily paused their Twitter advertising, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal, while legacy car manufacturers like GM and Ford were among the first companies to freeze advertisements on the platform, according to another report from Forbes. Both firms are entering the electric vehicle space against the 2-decade-old market leader Tesla, which is presently the world's most valuable car brand. The former companies have received a number of special favors from President Biden, who's also snubbed Tesla. I was not able to find any verification on the 15,000 blue check mark, but I'm not surprised either. I can say that right off the bat. And what have I said from the beginning when they started talking about $8 Twitter verification, even before it came out that people were paying $15,000 for the blue check mark? I said that if Elon had kept with his leftist roots, because he is at the root a leftist, a socialist leftist, if he had kept with his roots, but then went back out and demanded, I didn't even say up to 15,000. I said, what did I say? A couple grand a year? Yeah, that is what I said. A couple grand a year. That this would still be a status symbol, and the comms directors and the publicists and whatnot would gladly pay this. And even there, as far as the $15,000 for a blue check mark, I would not be surprised to find out that the person behind the blue check mark didn't know about it. That they actually thought it was free, which in some cases it probably was. But they actually thought that it was free, and then the publicist was shelling out the money behind the back to get the status symbol and make that person look more public and more important than that person actually was. But because A, number one, it's out in the open for people to see, and B, it's only $8, that makes it accessible for people like me, like you, like Stephen Ignoramus, like John Archist. It makes it accessible to people like us. And then these people lose their fancy status symbol. And again, I mean, these people aren't going to go out and give blue checks to their big bot farm. And a few of the plebs will come back out and do this. And yes, even organizations will come out and do this. If it's only $8 to get verified once we turn some pages up and running, if it's only $8 to do that, I would turn around and put out the $80 right now, right here, right now. If I had a good steady stream of income from the website to get all the people that I mentioned at the top of the show, their blue check marks, I would do that right out of the website's profits. $80 a month, right there for you for Twitter, for 10 people to be verified. And the other thing with this, the one thing that I do want to point out, and we're getting to the bottom of the show here, so we're not going to be able to do too much more because it's time for the Daily Ignoramus here in just a moment. But one of the things that goes with that is I want to see where all this racial content is. I want to see where people are dropping the N-word and talking about gassing a certain tribe of people from the Levant that we can never criticize. Because I don't see that on Twitter. I don't see any of that. Nobody will post a screenshot of it. Nobody will post anything about it. They'll sit back and complain and say that an uptick in the N-word on Twitter went up 500%. As soon as Elon Musk took over, which doesn't surprise me actually, because there were entire threads on Reddit that said that if Musk took over, they were going to do exactly that to scare away investors. But I've never actually seen any of this. They assure me every day it exists. I've never seen it. Kathy Griffin got in the news. From Fox Business, Twitter suspends Kathy Griffin's account for impersonating Elon Musk. From Tracy Wright, Kathy Griffin was the latest casualty in Elon Musk's Twitter takeover as the comedian's account was suspended on Sunday. Griffin, 62, changed her profile name to Musk and appeared to be promptly banned from the social media site. Despite her handle showing her own Kathy Griffin name, the moniker by her blue checkmark said Elon Musk, which goes against the company policy against impersonation. The SpaceX founder indicated that he was taking his chief tweet role seriously as he addressed the fake accounts just weeks after officially acquiring Twitter for $44 billion, following months of legal wrangling. And he put this tweet out, and then I had to respond to it because I actually disagree with Elon on this. And yes, I understand the fact that this is impersonation, and this is the ammunition that they're going to use as, oh, well, when they started making fun of him, then it stopped being okay. But Elon tweets out, going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended. To which I pointed out, I thought you were against permanent suspension. That was the big part of what we were doing here, is that you were against permanent suspension at this point. And look, I don't agree with what Kathy Griffin did. But you shouldn't be able to run back out and permanently suspend people either if you came out swinging and saying that you were against it from the start. Previously, we issued a warning before suspension, but now that we're rolling out widespread verification, there will be no warning. This will be clearly identified as a condition for signing up to Twitter Blue. Musk is launching an $8 monthly subscription service where any Twitter user may be able to easily attain a blue checkmark symbol. The simple blue mark was previously used to verify government accounts, notable figures, politicians, journalists, and other vetted users. Any name change at all will cause a temporary loss to verified checkmark, he added in a series of tweets. The overhaul is designed in an effort to pay off the company debt of Twitter's nearly 237 million users. Less than 450,000 accounts currently have the blue checkmark symbols. A class action lawsuit was filed against the company by workers who claimed the layoffs violate federal law requiring 60 days notice for employees, also known as Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification App. The White House deleted their tweet. White House deletes tweet after getting humiliated by fact check. Good. From Ryan Saavedra. The Biden admin deleted a tweet on Wednesday after it was fact checked because it was missing key context. Seniors are getting the biggest increase in the Social Security checks in 10 years through President Biden's leadership, the admin claimed. Twitter's Birdwatch program, which has existed for a while, attached a note to the tweet noting that the reason seniors have gotten an increase is because the inflation rates have exploded under Biden. Seniors will receive a large Social Security benefit increase due to the annual cost of living adjustment, which is based on the inflation rate, the note said, which included a link to the U.S. Social Security Administration, President Nixon in '72. Signed into law automatic benefit adjustments tied to the Consumer Price Index. Which is partially why this is all insolvent, by the way. I paid into this my whole life and I demand to get everything back out of it that I paid. But because of the cost of living adjustment, you didn't pay that much into it, actually. Token Diversity Hire claimed that the reason the admin deleted the tweet is because it was not complete. Look, this tweet is not complete. Usually when we put a tweet, we post it with context, and we didn't have that context, Diversity Hire says. So in the past, we've pointed out that for the first time in over a decade, seniors' Medicare premiums will decrease even as their Social Security checks increase. That's a little bit of context that was not included. The admin was mocked online after they deleted the tweet. Good. Good that you can't get away with it anymore. But with that, we are out of time. Before we do the Ferengi rules of acquisition, which, by the way, I've been watching Deep Space Nine again, and we're starting to get to the point where we're talking about the rules of acquisition. Like, the first rule of acquisition. Ram, what's the first... You remember the first rule of acquisition. Once you have their money, you never give it back. That was on... actually, I've watched that one a couple times now because I kept falling asleep in the middle of the episode. The Nagus. But before we do that, we've got to check in with Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher tweets out, and this came to me from a couple different places. Disney pulls the plug on vaccine mandates. Way to go, Mickey! Which is probably good. I'm not saying probably good. It is good. They should be. It was unnecessary from the start, and everybody knows it. Let's listen to what Drescher has to say. But first, let's turn the music off over here.
So to think that every human on the planet can take one vaccine is ludicrous. And to make that one vaccine the criteria for who is allowed to work, travel, dine, go to theater, etc., is an infringement on the Disabilities Act, the Freedom of Religion Act, and body sovereignty. We as a nation must be very careful that fear does not turn into fascism. When equal citizens stop being equal, when cards must be presented to identify whether you are included or excluded, we stand at a tipping point of an America I no longer recognize. And even though I myself am vaccinated, I must applaud Disney for taking the position not to vaccine mandate their sets any longer. The problem with discrimination is that there will always be good people who justify it because of an extreme condition. But it is those times especially when we must fight even harder to protect the sanctity of freedom for all, and never succumb to an us versus them mentality. Above all else, freedom. Peace.
And Drescher's absolutely right. I can't believe I'm saying that, but Drescher's absolutely right off this. And what did I say from the beginning? When they started talking about mandates, when they started talking about all these stupid things, what did I say right from the beginning? I know that I have friends that are anti-vax, and trust me, this mandate thing did horrible things for the anti-vax movement. It gave them so much clout off of there, because now they're actually coming out passing laws that demand that you put this into your body, whereas on most occasions under anti-vax, you could say, okay, well, fine, just don't get it, but don't come crawling to me if you get the polio or anything else. The mandate set the pro-vax movement back 50 years. All these mandates like this, first and foremost. But what have I said from the beginning? And Drescher herself claims, okay, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but the freedom to get your vaccination, that should be on you. What did I say from the beginning? I said, from the first part, when they first started talking about this, I said, okay, I'm going to give this a good 6 months and see what the actual decline is in cases from it and what any possible side effects there are, because by 6 months we should start getting all the side effects off of this. I intend to go back and do this if it's voluntary, if I never have to worry about this thing again. But I'm going to give it a good 6 months because I want to see what's happening with that. What's actually coming out about this. That's what I said from the beginning. But when they started talking about mandates, make sure everybody goes and gets it, begging people to get it, actually making lotteries for people that go and get it, that's where I started to say that I was out in the instance. But I've always said, I've maintained the same position. If you want to get this thing, go and get it. If you don't, then don't. I will not begrudge you if you go out and get this thing. My friend Britt was one of the first people signing up. With 2 kids, diabetic at home, and doing whatever she could to make it easier on her kids. She was one of the first people, because she was sold a bill of goods, that this would make it would make it almost impossible for her to get the Comicoof and then for her family to get the Comicoof with 2 immunocompromised kids. Made the sacrifice to go take care of her kids, as I think a lot of people went out and did. I do not begrudge anybody that went out and got this thing. If you want to get it, you can go and get it. And I've even made the offer. If you want to get it and you don't have a ride to go to your appointment and you're somewhat close by here, give me a call. I will take you to your vaccine appointment. The only deal with that is you are not allowed to pressure me to go and get it myself. Because I think that should be your freedom, your body, your choice. And people like Drescher are starting to recognize the fact that while she thought it was a good thing, it should be everyone else's choice whether or not they think it's a good thing as well. But that's what we have for that. And before we head out of here for the day, as we always do on Monday, we will check in with one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition and see what's happening with that. So, with the rules of acquisition, where did we leave off? We were in the triple digits, I know that. So we've got a couple of these where alpha cannon and beta cannon actually show up differently. So this is one of those because we've got the 108th rule of acquisition, which we read last week, from Alpha Canon, which is the DS9 reference book. Hope doesn't keep the lights on. But in Beta Canon, and they don't specify which novel this is from, we have another 108th rule of acquisition. The other 108th rule is, a woman wearing clothes is like a man without any profits. I'm actually going to fact check this because they won't, we're going to skip this one. Because they don't have citation of which novel this is. So I don't know if this is even in Beta Canon. Let's actually go to the 109th one for right now. The Extremely Patriarchal Society of the Ferengi being on deck. And we will go back and read this one if they do cite this one. But as of right now, we've got no citation for this one, so I'm going to skip that one. The 109th rule of acquisition. Dignity in an empty sack is worth the sack. This is from DS9 episode Rivals. So this is Alpha Canon. And, I mean, that's what it's... They're absolutely right when they say this. There are people that have gone out and said, I am quitting my job. I've got to be out of here. Because they treat me so horribly. And at least I have my dignity. Well, the dignity in an empty sack is worth the price of the sack. You have nothing. You really do. Now, I am not saying that you should be out and be exploited for what you do with no recourse coming back to you. I am by no means saying that. In a situation that's playing out my private life right now shows that this is the way that I feel about this. That I can't just run out and say, at least I have my dignity anymore. Because in the end, you still have nothing. And then what happens after you lose, You walked out of your job and at least you have your dignity, but now the bill collectors are calling, and now you've got the eviction notice, and now you're moving in with mommy and daddy again. And you're moving your whole family in with mommy and daddy. Do you still have your dignity at that point? If you are being undignified at work, there are manners to go out and do this. But as I said right at the top, when we were talking about abortion and liberty and democratic ideals and helping everybody else around the country and warmongering in Ukraine, warmongering in Taiwan, and all the other things that they keep saying are the most important thing and the biggest threats to our democracy, but really aren't. When it all comes down to it, it's about the economy. If you got that roof over your head, if you've got that meal in your belly, no matter what you've had to do with them, you live to fight another day, that you can go back, you can pick up and improve yourself. You can change your world, you can change the world around you. And you can find your dignity elsewhere. But don't cut yourself down and bring yourself out to nothing because you think it'll be dignified. I'm going to tell you a little story about this with dignity and the empty sack and being worth a sack. When I worked, and I'm not going to name the company obviously, but the last place that I worked before I moved out west, I had no dignity. I was being consistently abused by other mechanics who were under command from one of the lead mechanics to do so. It was suggested numerous times that I sue the company for harassment and bullying as to how bad it was. Most of you know the story. Many of you know the story of why I don't turn a wrench anymore because of something that happened at that company. And it did seem like they were trying to force me to go out and quit. And there was talk. There were rumors. I never had a confirmation of it, but there were rumors that when a call for reference came in, it was set out there. Now, again, I've never confirmed this, that it was told to the inquiring person that I'd been caught smoking weed behind a dumpster, even though I hadn't been. So the person wouldn't hire me. It did seem like they were trying to push me into quitting without having a backup plan, without having another place to go to. And I couldn't. I wouldn't do it. I was destroyed emotionally. And I did lose a lot of dignity off of that, but I kept the roof over my head. I kept the food in my belly, sometimes not as much as I'd have liked it to be, but I kept myself going and I kept myself fighting for another day. And then I eventually did find a better job. And from there, I got sniped by another job and said, hey, we want to pay you half again what you're making now. And then another job saying, hey, we'll throw another couple bucks on this and give you better insurance. And now it looks like another job coming in and saying, hey, your job won't give you an extra raise? Well, come here. We'll get you back on pace to what you were before inflation. As long as you keep that roof over your head and the food in your belly, you live to fight another day. And that is the 109th rule of acquisition. Let's head out of here for the day. I don't know what game this is from, by the way. The Dracula Killer Rhythm. I like the song. The album is dubbed Tendo. I would think probably Castlevania because of Dracula Killer, but I guess I haven't played enough Castlevania to be able to recognize this one. Alright. But what I can recognize is a good beat coming from Stephen Ignoramus. So let's get that playing and let's head out of here for the day. Alright. And with that, we're done. We're out of here. Hooray! As mentioned before, there are going to be some changes coming to the channel at some point, and there actually might be some time off for a few weeks because of that. I don't have any full announcements for that yet, but there's speculation for that. But do keep in mind, if I do have to take a few weeks off, we will be back here long term again because I do love doing this no matter what. It's just that there are some situations that are changing right now, and there's really nothing that I can do about that. Near term, if I do have to cut contemporary for a little while, the game streams will be continuing because I can still come back and do that and still give you guys updates on what's happening for that as well. Maybe even talk a little bit of news while we're playing video games. But at least temporarily, I will most likely be put in a position where I cannot maintain a daily show, because then there's going to be a commute involved in it. That's part of it. So that's going to be coming up the pipes here, but we will keep going as long as we can. Absolutely. So definitely come back and join us here tomorrow for midterms, and we'll be doing midterm streaming as well tomorrow night. So come back and join for that. We'll see if we can get some people in as well. But with that, come back and join the channel again. We'll talk about news, headlines, probably Elon Musk, probably some more midterm stuff as we go throughout the day. And we will see you here tomorrow for more Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.